Hey guys, tonight we're diving into the dust and thunder of ancient Rome, where chariots tear across battlefields, wheels spitting gravel, horses snorting under the weight of war. Picture yourself standing on a sun-scorched plain, the air thick with sweat and iron. A Roman chariot barrels toward you, its driver grinning like he knows you probably won't survive this. These weren't just fancy carts for toga-wearing joyrides. They were game changers, the Ferraris of their day, built to outrun and outmaneuver. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment with your location and local time. I'm curious where you're drifting off tonight. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're there when chariots first roll into Roman warfare, around the 6th century BCE. Rome's still a scrappy city-state, not the empire you know, and it's eyeballing its neighbors, like the Etruscans, who've got a knack for fancy tech. The Romans, never ones to miss a good idea, see these two-wheeled war machines and think, yeah, we'll take that. Chariots aren't new. Egyptians and Hittites have been zipping around for centuries, but Rome makes them their own. They're not just borrowing, they're adapting, tweaking designs to suit their hilly terrain and aggressive vibe. By the time Rome's fighting the Samnites, chariots are a battlefield staple, screaming speed and terror. Now, let's get you closer. You're trudging beside a Roman legion, your sandals caked in mud. Ahead, a chariot squadron, maybe 10 or 12, kicks up a dust cloud. Each one's got a driver, gripping the reins, and a warrior, maybe clutching a spear or bow. The mainstream fact here? Chariots gave Rome a mobile edge, letting them hit fast and retreat before the enemy could blink. Armies back then moved like molasses, so this was huge. You watch a chariot swing wide, its warrior lobbing javelins into a mob of enemy infantry. The chaos is instant. Shouts, scattered shields, pure panic. But here's the quirky tidbit. Some Roman chariots carried drummers. Yeah, drummers. Imagine you're the enemy, already rattled by these speeding death carts, and now there's a guy banging a drum like he's auditioning for a rock band. It wasn't just for show. Those beats signaled maneuvers or spooked enemy horses. Historians still argue whether this was standard or just some general's weird flex. Did every chariot crew have a drummer, or was it a one-off tactic? No one's dug up a chariot band manual yet, so the debate rages. You're starting to see why chariots caught on. They're not just fast, they're psychological weapons. You're an enemy soldier, and that chariot's bearing down, horses foaming, wheels creaking like they're about to snap. Your knees wobble. Rome's betting on that fear. But it's not all smooth riding. Chariots need flat ground. Hills or rocks turn them into expensive firewood. And they're not cheap. You're noticing the logistics already. Horses need feed. Wheels need smiths. And those drivers, they're not your average grunts. They're trained, elite, and probably insufferable about it. As you watch another chariot zip past, you catch the driver's smirk. He knows he's the rock star of this battlefield. You're wondering how Rome pulled this off, how they turned a borrowed toy into a war machine. The answer's in their obsession with control. Rome didn't just adopt chariots. They drilled their crews until every turn, every javelin toss was muscle memory. You're impressed, but you're also sweating. This is just the start, and the battlefield's about to get wilder. You're still on that sun-baked battlefield, the air buzzing with the whine of chariot wheels. Dust stings your eyes as you squint at a Roman chariot tearing across the plain, its horses churning earth like a storm. This isn't just a fancy cart. It's a weapon built for one thing: speed. You're about to learn why that speed made Rome's enemies tremble and how it flipped the script on ancient combat. Picture yourself as an enemy grunt, maybe a Samnite or Gaul, gripping your spear, your shield heavy as regret. Your army's a tight block of infantry, moving slow, like a herd of grumpy cows. Suddenly, you hear a rumble. Before you can blink, a chariot screaming towards you at maybe 20 miles an hour, faster than any horse or man on foot. You're not ready. Nobody is. The mainstream fact here is brutal. Chariot speed let Rome strike like lightning, disrupting formations before the enemy could swing a sword. You watch one zip past, its warrior hurling javelins that pin shields or pierce armor. Your buddies scatter, and your neat battle lines now a mess. Speed's not just about attack, it's escape. You're chasing that chariot, lungs burning, but it's already looping back to Roman lines. Driver chuckling like he's out for a Sunday drive. This mobility meant Rome could harass, retreat, and hit again, wearing you down. It's psychological torture. You're starting to hate that driver. He's probably got a nickname like Gaius the Untouchable, and you're stuck eating his dust. Here's the quirky bit. Some chariots had scythes on their wheels. Yeah, scythes. Big, curvy blades spinning like a horror movie prop. Were they slicing legs off left and right? Probably not. Evidence suggests they were more for show, meant to make you pee your tunic before the fight even started. Historians still argue whether these bladed chariots were common or just a few generals' edgy experiments. Did they actually mow down troops, or was it all hype? The sources, mostly Roman braggers, aren't clear. You're noticing the battlefield's chaos now. A chariot swings wide, dodging your clumsy spear throw. Its speed lets it flank your position, hitting your archers before they can nock arrows. You're shouting orders, but your voice drowns in the hoofbeats. Rome's using that speed to control the fight's tempo, keeping you off balance. It's like they're playing chess while you're stuck at checkers. And those horses, they're bred for this. Lean, fast, trained to ignore the screams and blood. You're jealous of their focus, but speed has limits. You spot a chariot slowing as it hits a patch of uneven ground. Rocks and ruts are its kryptonite. You're thinking, if I can lure them into that gully, they're toast. Smart enemies, like those sneaky gulls, knew this and picked rough terrain to neuter Rome's advantage. You're learning fast. Chariots are deadly, but they're not invincible. Still, out here on this flat plain, they're a nightmare. You're dodging another javelin, cursing under your breath. Let's add a little modern shade. Imagine these chariots as the ancient equivalent of a sports car with no brakes, all gas, no chill. You're wondering how the driver doesn't crash every 5 seconds. Training, that's how. These guys practiced until their hands bled, learning to lean into turns, to feel the horse's rhythm. You're impressed, but also annoyed. Nobody should be this good at making your day worse. As the chariot vanishes into a dust cloud, you're left panting, your shield splintered. Speed's the star of this show, and Rome's milking it for all it's worth. You're starting to see why their enemies wrote home about these things. But you're also curious. What makes these chariots tick? What's under the hood of this ancient war machine? You're crouched behind a Roman supply cart now, catching your breath as a chariot rolls by, close enough to smell the sweat on the horses. The thing's a marvel, wood and bronze gleaming under the sun, wheels spinning like they're defying gravity. You're curious, itching to peek under the hood of this ancient war machine. Let's tear it apart and see what makes these chariots the Ferraris of Rome's battlefield. You're eyeing the chassis first. It's light, built from seasoned wood. Think oak or ash, stripped to keep it nimble. The mainstream fact? Roman chariots were engineering feats, designed for speed and stability, weighing maybe 200 pounds unloaded. That's feather light for something hauling 2 guys and weapons. You notice the axles, reinforced with bronze fittings, to handle the jolts of rough plains. The wheels are the real stars, spoked, not solid, with iron rims for durability. You're thinking, this looks like a race car, and you're not wrong. Rome borrowed from Greek and Etruscan designs, but tweaked them for war, not just circus stunts. Now, the quirky tidbit. Some chariots had shock absorbers, not springs like your car, but leather straps or cords binding the platform to the axle. You're imagining bouncing over rocks, the driver barely flinching as those straps eat the impact. It's not luxury, but it's enough to keep the warrior from eating dirt on a sharp turn. Historians still argue whether this was standard or a fancy upgrade for elite crews. Did every chariot have these proto-suspensions, or just the general's ride? No workshop records survive, so it's anyone's guess. You're running your hand along the platform now, barely big enough for two. The driver's braced against a low rail, reins wrapped around his waist for control. The warrior's got a tiny ledge to stand on, gripping a spear or bow. You're wondering how they don't fall off. Balance, training, and a whole lot of nerve. The horses, usually two, sometimes four, are hitched to a central yoke, their harnesses padded to prevent chafing. You notice the bits in their mouths, bronze and brutal, designed to make them obey instantly. These aren't your average farm nags. They're bred for speed, fed better than most soldiers. Let's talk tech flaws. You spot the wheel's weakness, narrow and prone to cracking on rocky ground. One bad hit, and that chariot's a pile of kindling. You're also noticing the lack of armor. Speed's the priority, so there's no heavy plating. If an arrow hits the driver, it's game over. You're starting to get why these things need flat terrain and skilled crews. It's a high-risk, high-reward setup, like driving a sports car in a demolition derby. Here's a modern aside. Imagine trying to parallel park this thing. You're giggling at the thought of a Roman driver cursing as he scrapes the wheels. But these guys were pros, trained to whip around obstacles without blinking. You're impressed, but also a bit dizzy just watching. The engineering's slick, but it's the human element that sells it. Those drivers and warriors, they're the software to this hardware, and they're running at peak performance. You're back in the moment, watching a chariot skid to a stop. The driver's checking a loose wheel pin, muttering something about shoddy craftsmen. You're starting to appreciate the craftsmanship, though. The way every piece fits, every knot's tied just right. This isn't just a vehicle, it's a statement. Rome saying, we're fast, we're smart, and we're coming for you. But you're also wondering about the guys riding these things. Who are they? And how do they not lose their lunch every battle? You're clinging to the edge of a Roman chariot now, the wind whipping your face as the driver snaps the reins. The ground blurs beneath you, and your stomach's doing flips. You're not just a spectator anymore. You're riding with the crew, feeling the raw intensity of their world. These guys, the driver and warrior, are the heartbeat of this war machine, and you're about to see what makes them tick under pressure. The driver's your first focus. He's lean, all sinew and focus, eyes locked on the horizon. His hands are calloused, wrapped tight around reins, tied to his waist for extra grip. You're amazed he's steering two galloping horses while dodging spears. The mainstream fact here: chariot crews were elite, handpicked for skill and nerve, trained for years to handle these high-speed death traps. You watch him lean into a turn, shifting his weight to keep the chariot from flipping. One wrong move, and you're all roadkill. He's not just driving, he's reading the battlefield, anticipating ruts, and ignoring the arrows whizzing past. Next to him, the warrior's a different breed. He's balanced on a narrow ledge, one hand gripping a rail, the other clutching a javelin. You're close enough to see his knuckles whiten as he aims at a distant enemy line. His job's simple but brutal. Hit hard, then get out. You're wincing as he throws, the chariot lurching under the shift in weight. These two are a team, moving like they share a brain. The driver shouts something, maybe a warning, maybe a joke, and the warrior grins, already knocking an arrow. Here's the quirky tidbit. Some drivers sang during battles, not ballads, but short, rhythmic chants to calm the horses or psych themselves up. You're imagining this guy belting out a tune while dodging javelins, and it's equal parts badass and ridiculous. Historians still argue whether this was common or just a few eccentrics showing off. Did singing really steady the horses, or was it a way to taunt the enemy? No one's found a Roman karaoke scroll, so the debate's open. You're feeling the pressure now. The chariot's barreling toward an enemy formation, and you're bracing for impact. The warrior's loosing arrows faster than you can blink, each one aimed to disrupt, not destroy. You're noticing their teamwork. Driver swerves to give the warrior a clear shot. Warrior leans to keep the chariot balanced. It's a dance, and they've practiced every step. But it's not flawless. You spot the driver's sweat, the warrior's gritted teeth. One misstep, and this chariot's a wreck. Let's throw in some modern shade. These guys are like rally racers with no seatbelts, trusting each other to not crash their whole vibe. You're half expecting them to high-five after a good hit, but they're too busy surviving. The horses are screaming, the wheels are groaning, and you're wondering how they don't crack under the stress. Training, sure, but also ego. These crews knew they were the rock stars of the battlefield. You're starting to get why Rome leaned on these teams. It's not just the chariot, it's the humans making it deadly. But you're also seeing the cracks. The driver's cursing as a wheel wobbles. Maintenance is a nightmare. The warrior's low on arrows and resupplies miles away. You're realizing this setup's fragile, held together by skill and luck. As the chariot swings back toward Roman lines, you're catching your breath, heart pounding. These guys are legends, but you're curious how generals use them to win wars. You're back on the battlefield, dust coating your tongue as you watch a Roman general survey the chaos from a hilltop. His eyes are locked on a squadron of chariots, zipping across the plain like hornets. You're not riding now. You're in the general's head, seeing how he wheels these speed demons to outsmart his enemies. Chariots aren't just fast. They're a tactical scalpel, and you're about to learn how Rome's commanders carved up their foes with them. The generals pointing at a weak spot in the enemy line, a gap where their infantry's bunched too tight. He barks an order, and you see 3 chariots peel off, kicking up gravel. The mainstream fact: chariots were Rome's go-to for shock tactics, used to disrupt formations and create openings for the legions to exploit. You watch them charge, warriors hurling javelins to scatter the enemy's front rank. It's not about kills, it's about chaos. The enemy's shouting, shields raised as the chariots veer away, leaving a rattled mess for Rome's foot soldiers to steamroll. You're noticing the strategy now. Chariots don't slug it out. They hit and run, the generals using them like a boxer's jab, softening the enemy before the knockout. You see another chariot swing wide, flanking a group of archers. The warriors loose arrows, forcing the archers to duck, giving Roman cavalry a chance to charge. It's a chess game, and the chariots are the knights, unpredictable and deadly. You're impressed by the precision. Each move feels rehearsed, like a play called in the heat of battle. Here's the quirky tidbit. Some generals use chariots as mobile command posts. Picture a commander riding along, barking orders from the platform while his driver dodges spears. It's bold, maybe reckless, but it let him stay close to the action. Historians still argue whether this was genius or just showboating. Did it really improve coordination, or was it a way to flex authority? The sources, mostly Roman fanboys, don't settle it. You're starting to see the bigger picture. The general's not just throwing chariots at random. He's pairing them with infantry and cavalry, each unit covering the other's weaknesses. You spot a chariot feinting toward an enemy flank, drawing their spearmen out of position. It's a bait, and the enemy bites, leaving a hole for Rome's legions to punch through. You're chuckling at their mistake. Classic overreach, like a kid lunging for candy. But you're also sweating. One chariot misjudges its path, nearly crashing into a ditch. Tactics are only as good as execution. Let's toss in a modern jab. This general's like a coach running a no-huddle offense, keeping the enemy guessing. You're half expecting him to pull out a playbook and start diagramming plays in the dirt. But it's not all smooth. Chariots need space to maneuver, and this battlefield's getting crowded. You're noticing the general's frown,